Today, we talk about the invisible blueprint, about how people and culture are the hidden infrastructure of an organization. Now, enterprise architecture is a broad discipline, and I know that EA can be viewed with many lenses, highlighting various concerns. But today, I'll focus on the human side of things. And I'm very much inspired by Lisa Woodall's work, and I hope that today's session complements her presentation earlier today. So, most of us have seen this before. A company wants to change things around, new mission, vision, strategy, etc. But they have a lot of focus on the tech side of things, and the main initiatives they start are true technology improvements. There was this retail bank CEO many years ago who said, "Well, we're a tech company first," and that whole premise, I think, in my humble opinion, is damaging to the organization. Um, Organizations creating near perfect technology roadmaps, not catering for business benefits when they matter. You get initiatives like replace the ERP system because the current one doesn't work well, or replace the marketplace because it looks outdated, or let's do AI, replace the database platform with an open source platform to save cost. And the challenge that we have with these initiatives, or ones that look like this, is that they are not grounded in strategic goals and priorities that matter. And we would ask questions like, how does this benefit our business goal, our mission, our vision, etc.? And chances are that we can find a smart person in the organization who can perfectly well explain. But when we dig deeper, the truth is true grounding in strategy is a different story. Some organizations have evolved. They focus on real business transformation instead of technology transformation. But even then, we can see initiatives emerge like let's become digital, or let's do agile way of working and data driven insights, or this is the kicker. We've organized or we've planned a reorganization. This is the new org chart. Switching to DevOps, design thinking, RPA to do people's work. Those are not business initiatives. Those are, yes, very much initiatives, but how do they really link to the strategy, or how do they work as a strategy? So these are means, but not clearly linked to a true, solid strategic goal. Again, we can ask that same question, right? How do they benefit the mission and vision and strategy? Okay, a successful business transformation, make it so. For the people who've watched Star Trek over the years, a science fiction show, I think that started back in the 60s. Captain Jean-Luc Picard, on board of the USS Enterprise, a starship in the 24th century, whenever he wanted to travel somewhere, he gave the order, make it so. And then the starship would fly there. It would go wherever he wanted to go. And many organizations, they do have a make it so attitude, meaning that senior management commands this change and automatically the whole organization changes, or so they assume. The problem with that approach is that Captain Picard was in the military, and not following orders was not an option for the crew. I mean, court martial, it's a fairly compelling argument for following orders. In a large non-military organization, however, make it so can't possibly mean go fix my problem. It just doesn't work like that. And we need something extra. We need something that make it so helps move forward. And those are these three things. So we need a clear intent. Then we need to work on aligned behavior across the organization. And lastly, we need enabling technology. And yes, I know some of our EA profession go, oh, great, soft skills, management theory, what an open door, but please bear with me because these are crucial to the hidden infrastructure, which is today's focus topic. So when we look at these three basic elements, we think of topics like a North Star, a clear target, a target business model and target operating model that are geared towards the enterprise strategy, the mission, the vision. And we need to make sure that whatever next thing we do, it's all focused on that North Star. To align behavior, we need to have aligned priorities across the organization. Left hand and right hand should be doing, or should be having the same focus, at least typically. We need strategic business KPIs, not just tech KPIs. I love my uptime KPI, no worries there. But is it really a performance indicator or something that you need to have in place because not having it is damaging? And true business KPIs are probably something else. Then, when we look at the technology side, we need to make sure that it serves as an enabler of business change, and that it's used to remove friction. We need to make sure that technology facilitates and enables business adaptability and autonomy of teams where it matters. So when taking a step back, we can see the word behavior there, and that's the link to people and culture. And I would like to focus on this part next. So, people and culture. We need to understand that they are actually infrastructure. Some of that infrastructure is visible, like an organization's formal structure, the org chart, and some of it is not, like the informal network. Who likes whom, who fancies whom, who can't stand somebody, who doesn't want to work with somebody else. Where is trust, where is no trust, or a long-standing trust relationship issue, etc. So that infrastructure is harder to spot as it's not formally documented. Now, beyond the org chart, the informal network adds catalysts and inhibitors to the communication in the organization. Some formal communication structure is facilitated and even empowered, other is hindered or non existent just because people will or won't talk to each other. So, that informal network is also the structural integrity of many things in the organization that are not governed by the org charts and are, as such, hidden infrastructure. Let's explore how that works. According to Melvin Conway, a famous programmer, in 1968, he coined something what is today's called Conway's Law, an adage where he said, organizations who design systems are constrained to produce designs, which are copies of the communication structure of these organizations. What that means is that there is a link between the communication structure of an organization and the systems they design. And I think the example that they used is if you have two teams building a compiler, remember back in 68, that was a very prominent topic. Those two teams will probably build a two-step compiler, and the communication between those two mimics the communication structure of those two teams, or between those two teams, relationships, if you will. So, although he intended this effect on computer systems and programs, beyond his beliefs at the time, the informal network is also a system or a collection of systems, if you will. Groups of people that work well together, others that work maybe not so well together. The informal network has profound impact on the effectiveness of an organization from that point of view. So, over time, perhaps even it can organically influence corrective actions taken when business processes don't integrate well. Remember, here's the org chart, now get going. That statement was disconnected from what the operation of an organization needs sometimes, right? Depending on whether the organizational structure takes care of what the organization needs next. So, a structure that was created in hidden secret rooms that was not tested probably has limited chances of success. To increase the chances of success, we need to view that informal network also as architecture, similar to software. And the two things we need to do to resolve that situation. So we've got the formal structure that may be disconnected, and the informal network that is likely to be disconnected if we don't make people work together in a meaningful way. And we need to change those both. So let's see how we get that under control. First, we need to align mindsets. Then we need to establish trust between people, and only then we can worry about the organization, and hopefully we can see it as a living organism, so not a static thing. Now, before taking me down for discussing management theory, bear with me because it matters. It's a prerequisite, and without it, people easily default to that informal network, and that's exactly what we try to address here. So, aligning mindsets probably starts with having that North Star to communicate clear intent, to make sure that people understand why and how they will be operating. It would be good to verify if the intent is understood, find people that have objections, find people that foster or enable that North Star, learn from that and adapt as you go along. And it's a continuous exercise. Then to establishing trust, enabling as a starting point, but beyond that, we need empowerment. Empowerment as a strategic goal. And we need both enablement and empowerment, because enablement without empowerment is we have the tools and we're trained, but approvals take 6 weeks. And empowerment without enablement is we're free to act, but we have no clue what to do, how to do it, etc. We need cooperation. We need to make sure that people are masters of their own destiny, but at the same time, they operate towards that shared common goal, that is the North Star. Then the way an organization is structured, hopefully that living organism that we discussed, it should follow operational needs or contemporary needs that are strongly tied to purpose and intent, as well as short and long-term priorities and strategic goals. Although that North Star probably doesn't move very often, year-over-year initiatives on the roadmap can change priorities over time, and if priorities change, then the org chart might need to change too. So these first two parts here, they work from on the informal network, and these are continuous efforts, apologies, not a one-time program. And the last part focuses on the organizational formal structure. Let's explore how that works on the next slide. So we'll do a little case study. This is Regent and Rye. Regent and Rye is a fictional 160-year-old luxury bakery. They're located and operate from Devon, and they use locally sourced heritage grains only. They make luxury breads that are branded, and they also sell branded grains business to business. So let's start with that North Star. So vision, mission, strategic goals. And obviously, in order to reach those, we need a strategy. And that strategy consists out of two main components. Maybe there are more, but those are two very important ones. The target business model. What do we do? Which kind of products do we have? How do we source them? How do we pay for them? How do we make revenue? And the target operating model. How do we organize ourselves to make sure that we can fulfill that business model and reach our mission and vision? I'm fond of the work of Jeannie Ross and others on operation models, which is quite helpful in understanding the target operation of an organization. Next, each of these, the target business model and the target operating model, they probably trigger some lower level or more fine-grained strategic goals. And in order to understand how we actually reach mission and vision, we need to understand what we need to do in order to do it. And explaining how to do that is as simple or as complex as creating a business capability map, because those business capabilities that we plot on it are all the relevant abilities for the organization to achieve mission, vision, etc. Now, if we look at the structure from top to bottom, we can see that mission, vision, and strategic goals are what we do. The strategy is how we do it. And the business capabilities is what we need to do in order to reach that strategy. Understanding the capability map is making sure that we understand what we do for mission and vision. How we create functioning business processes out of that is a different question, and we'll deep dive into those right now. So each business capability has its own operating model, hopefully one that fits with the overall more coarse-grained enterprise operating model. So we need to figure out how to organize the business processes in that capability operating model. As an example, if you have a furniture factory, probably they have a unified operating model for manufacturing their furniture. If you have a web shop, probably they have a coordination operating model for coordinating logistics, for finding the right shippers to deliver packages to people's doors. So those are just a few examples. By the way, Regent and Rye, they're a fairly local company, and they have a unification model for logistics. They have their own trucks, 3 drivers, 3 trucks, and they deliver to the local businesses. Okay, let's see how we connect execution to strategy then. And everything starts with the business processes. A business process is key to execution. This is where this real stuff happens. Without focusing on the business process, what are we doing, right? So everything that we do next in the operating model, when we open that black box of the business capability operating model, focuses on processes and hinges on that concept. Now, business processes probably manage or master information. As an example, if I have a customer management business capability, then probably they manage customer information and not product information, because that would probably be a different capability. Some parts of those business processes, they can be automated and some not. So some are solved by technology and some are solved by people that have certain roles. Okay, so once we've established the operating model of the business capability, I think it's clear or fair to understand. I'll remove this for a minute. We don't see any org structure here. And the reason is very simple, because the org structure could change over time while we still need this business capability. So the way we organize shouldn't be in this model. So only after we've established the business process and the role people fulfill, only then we can focus on the organizational structure. So instead of handing the org chart to the business and saying, or to the organization and saying, make it so, we could focus on organization afterwards. Okay, let's see. So it's intentional that org structure comes last because it allows us to adapt the organizational structure while keeping the left-hand side of this page fairly stable. What's also interesting is that we've now provided sort of codified intent for how the org structure should work. And that helps with all the things that we discussed already. Yes, management theory, yes, soft skill, with that informal network. So let's take a look at the case study again. So Region NY, they want to do national expansion, which means they don't operate locally anymore. They've created a roadmap in 3 phases. The first phase is where we are right now. The second phase is when they launch a partner marketplace. So nationally, they can take orders. And the second phase is they want to increase B2B loyalty, and they do that with AI. I'll get back to that shortly. Now, on the transition from current to phase 1, probably things change. Remember that unified order delivery that we said? Well, it probably needs to move to coordination, because those 3 drivers are probably not enough to serve the entire country. And increasing their unified model to have hundreds of drivers is probably a very costly endeavor. And they're not a shipping company, they're a bakery. So probably they should focus on their core business and coordinate across other companies. So this is where the target operating model and the organizational structure is affected. Also, because of launching that partner marketplace, they probably need some product development, some marketing and sales capabilities, a different IT operation. Customer services becomes even more important than it already was, order picking changes, etc. And all of these, they have their own target operating models, depending on what the overall operating model of the organization is. Order capture. Well, order capture was on the phone, right? I'd assume they would be on the phone. So people could call them and people would do manual data entry to make sure that orders are delivered. But with that strategic change, or the marketplace that was brought by this change, then probably they don't need to take so many phone calls. And the people that are now focusing on taking phone calls, because of increasing automation, they could probably focus on more engaging tasks than data entry. For example, they could be staffing the customer services capability. In phase 2, they want to use AI to offer personalized offers. So again, we need probably a few new capabilities, better data governance, better integration governance, because that's what's required for AI. And we introduce those AI offer management, monitoring and control to make sure that we are only offering things that don't make Region NY bankrupt. And if we have an offer that doesn't fit the business rules, we need some exception handling instead of giving the offer to the customers. Again, we need to add some capabilities, and all of these have their own target operating model. And you can see across time that because there is a target operating model change, or part of it changes, there is probably org impact. Yeah? So every target operating model has an organizational component, and that means that every operating model change can affect how we need to organize. And similarly, every business process or automation change within that operating model can again affect how we need to organize. So there are a few risks as well. Risks are that we can't really make mindsets aligned. I mean, we're dealing with people here, and it makes sense that we ensure that mindsets are aligned. Another risk is that in the heads of people, the org structure is static, and they do tomorrow what they did yesterday, and that just hinders the changes that we need in the organization structure. Also, if we don't have an aligned mindset, then chances are there is divergence of goals or local goals, and perhaps even competition among teams, which means we're not really cooperating. And that is often done because of lack of foundational trust. If teams don't trust each other, they rely more on themselves, and that means cooperation is hindered. What's also interesting is that I've been with many organizations where business transformation happened, and an over-focus on technology seems people to distract from the actual things that matter to business transformation, business stuff. So that's also an interesting lesson I've learned. And all of these are each individually, but all of them together, they are ways of increasing resistance to business change, which is obviously not where we want to go. We need the business to change organically. So a few takeaways. I think I'm nearing the end of my session. So we need that human-centered North Star. We need to communicate intent and purpose so everybody understands what we're doing, why, and how. We need to align mindsets and ensure that trust is there and we have joint priorities so the right teams are cooperating with the right priorities at the same time. We need empowerment as a step up from enablement as a strategic goal so that teams can become self-confident and autonomous. And we need business KPIs over tech KPIs or local KPIs. And we need to follow the proper sequence of change, which means organization last. And that is intentional. So all of that together is required to make sure that we can have an organically changing organization that trusts each other, that does what it needs at the right point in time. Obviously, we need to mind the risks. And without that, people easily default to the informal network infrastructure. So I'm very much aware that not all people will be happy about a constantly changing org structure, or so it seems. And change can be a challenge for some of us. And at the same time, I think it would be good if we could part ways with viewing the organizational structure as a static thing. We could embrace the possibility of an organization or an organizational structure that follows contemporary needs. I also like to express the hope that we can actively start working on steering that informal network to make it work for us. Now, I may have secretly given a possible recipe for a composable organization that fosters durable adaptability and a recipe that allows for thinking in ecosystems, as business functionality is viewed as everything comprised by the bounded context and the corresponding target operating models that the capability thinking can bring to the table. Sorry about that. Okay, so before we conclude, I'd like to propose that it's probably time to let go of the view that enterprise architects are technology architects. And we should recognize that EAs have a holistic role that requires them to be a designer of human systems too. Thank you, and I think we have time for one or two questions.
Could you just zoom your camera out a little bit, Roger? It just zoomed in the last couple of minutes.
That's interesting.
That's right, we're just seeing the top part of your head.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but yes,
no worries, no worries. All good, all good. It wasn't for the whole session, so all good. Okay, we've got time for one question. Let's look. We've got one here from Marlene. If an enterprise/organization can be described as an informal network, would it be worth modeling them or their dysfunction according to the DSM-5?
I'm not sure modeling and making non-functional parts of the organization works very motivational, right? So I think it would be good to be aware, but let's focus on the positive things.
Yeah, that was a good one. Okay, wonderful. If there are quite a few other questions and comments that have come in, please reach out to Roger directly. I'm sure he'll be happy to continue the conversation on LinkedIn or on the platform. So yeah, please reach out to him there. Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for a really, really great session as always, Roger.
Thank you all.
Wonderful. Good stuff. Okay, the next presentation of the day will be starting right away in the sessions area, so you can make your way there now. And yeah, we'll see you all very shortly.